Hey everybody, Mario and Jen here. Okay, so you've got your basic foundational things you need to scale. Let's talk about a handful of things that have, over the course of the 7 years or so that I've been doing this full time, every time we lead to a 7 or multi-7-figure winner, every time I get students to multiple 6-figure, multiple 7-figure winners, there's like 4 or 5, go-to moves that make all the difference in the world. And sometimes, one of them will do the difference for you. Sometimes you need a factor of a couple of these moves, and it'll just give you an advantage, and it'll allow this whole thing to line up for you, to be profitable and to scale up. Okay. So let's go through them. Okay, so some of the major factors of breaking through, assuming that when I say the above is tightened up, that's the video before this. We talked about common factors necessary to build the foundation of what you need to scale something in Facebook. Okay. When we're particularly talking about POD, and when we're particularly talking about products in general that you have some control over, right? One of the biggest, if not the biggest, advantage you have here with message cards or maybe some of the other SKUs that shine on, but let's specifically speak to the message cards. I've said before, I'll say it a million times, these things are written sales letters. So you have all these, every single line, every single font, every single bold, every single color, every single copyright, rewrite, every single rewording of the sentences are all factors that you can test and test and test and make more and more versions, okay, or iterations until you develop the best possible version of your, winning quote, winning design, winning product. Now, of course, we don't want to do this on the majority of concepts and initial quotes that we test. We want to wait till we have our outlier or two, which will be 1 or 2 out of 20 or 30 or 50 concepts. There's going to be 1 or 2 that are just drastically better. And those are the ones we want to develop. Chances are they scale to a certain amount of profitability on iteration 1, but if that thing's operating at 10% profit and you test a couple dozen or even more variations from a graphic and even more importantly in certain niches, if not all, a copywriting point of view, you're going to be able to get that thing up to 20 or 25% profit margin. And then when you scale to 10,000 or more a day or even 5,000 a day, you're going to be able to either maintain that profitability or on a percentage basis, or it'll go down slightly as most things do when you scale. But on a dollar amount take home, you had the room to go from, drop from a 25% profit margin at 1,000 a day, you're making $250. So you drop to a 15% profit margin at $10,000. Okay, well now you're literally bringing home $1,500 as you're building out your brand. And that's life-changing money for most people, right? So let's get into it. All right, so you're always one iteration away to get all these KPIs to line up, right? Maybe your click-through rate has to go up, maybe your cost per click has to go down, and then your on-site conversion rate will be good enough to get to a profit margin that lets you scale, okay? Maybe the quote itself, oftentimes, just is not strong enough, and your click-through rate and your cost per click and your conversion rate on your website, or the conversion rate on the website in this example would be a little less optimal. So maybe your quote's just not the strong enough version to make it all work. You're getting decent clicks, ad accounts in good health, you're getting plenty of engagement, you're getting plenty of nice KPIs, but they get to the website and they only convert at 1.8% or something. And then all of a sudden you get a copywriter to rewrite your quote, or you Franken quote in some phrases from other winners that are somewhat congruent into the concept, you reword things around, you make it more readable, whatever it is, and all of a sudden your 1.8% conversion rate on your site goes up to 2.5%. And that makes everything line up because you had cheap enough clicks. Now you're converting significantly higher on a percentage basis, and you're in a profit margin of 20% or so. And then you scale this thing up to a few $1,000s a day, see if it maintains profitability, or do we need to continually test more iterations to get strong enough to get to the the real money-making zone, which, I view as anything, that's doing 10,000 or more a day. 5,000 a day if you have a great ROAS, but basically ultimately, we want to get these things to, at least $10,000 days, and at least a 15 or to 25% profit margin. So we're bringing home, legitimate money. Okay. So another concept that's used in this example here is day parting, and it doesn't really show the intraday parting as much, although I believe this next picture does. Okay. So day parting in this case, we know this niche absolutely solid. It's one of the bigger niches. This is one of the top sellers from some really slow months as far as message cards for this niche. But you'll see, once we found our winning copyright iteration, all of a sudden this really started to show some numbers, and then we were able to double budgets, and double budgets, right? And then the day parting comes into the factor of, you'll see these couple days a week where we do, considerably lower sales. And that's intentional, right? That's because we know this niche inside and out as far as, which days are more likely to give money back. And we'll adjust our budgets accordingly, right? And our strategies. The other factor here is intraday parting. So this is from a different project of mine. But if you know that you can get massive traffic at a particular time of the day, this is using a more advanced bidding strategy, then what you can do is flood your store with traffic, even if it's at a lower ROAS during that period of time. And this is just one intraday parting strategy. There's others. And then you can use the pacing of that to then lower the amount of traffic you're getting, and just all the follow-up from the SMS and the abandoned carts, all the retargeting ads, all of the factors in the Facebook algorithm that are related to pacing, unless these little tiny, comparably tiny hours here actually are so highly profitable that even if I broke even on the first like $5,000 or $10,000, or in this case like $5,000 or $6,000 in sales, the next $4,000 in sales is like almost pure profit. And then at the end of the day, I'm able to hit my target of $1,500 to $3,000 in profit because of the pacing and the intraday parting in this case, right? So you don't have to get that complicated, but you definitely want to know your niche and know, especially if one of your niche is one of the niches that has very consistent behavior, which are the niches that I like to focus on, and get to know them more and more and more as time goes on between my projects, my students' projects, networking, and leveraging that data to give us an advantage, right? And that's how you gotta assess it. I mean, during this whole run, which actually turned out to do probably 250,000 if I fast forwarded through August, the whole time we only had a few days where we lost money, right? And that's highly because of the day parting. It's also because before we scaled, we weren't all, rambunctious and eager to scale a version of this product, an iteration of this product, between the design and the quote, that wasn't good enough to maintain profitability as we scaled. But there was a couple times where, should I scale? I don't know. It's only like doing 5 to 15% profit margin. I don't think it's strong enough yet. Let's get it stronger. And once we got it stronger, then obviously we can scale it, right? Okay. Another thing that often is a theme I see time and time again that breaks through is user-generated content or creative testing, right? There's a little clip from a Coffee with Michael in the Shine On group where I did a brief presentation on how I use a creative sandbox. So I'll grab those slides at least and do another training in here about that, sort of give you an idea of realistic layout for creative testing. Okay, so in this particular example, we found what we felt like was a winning product, but for too many days we're hovering in the $2,000 to $5,000 rate with very small profit margins, right? 5% or something, like just not making a high enough profit margin even to be justified at that sales rate. But we're coming into Father's Day, and so we're really waiting to break out in this thing. And in the meantime, tested. And this was a store I worked on with my clients. You might recognize this one. This was the top seller, I believe, of all of Shine On for Father's Day, which isn't necessarily one of the bigger days at Shine On. and compared to Mother's Day, obviously, right? So in this particular breakout, and this is another common theme that I see across most of the winners for myself and clients and friends, the user-generated content really made all the difference in the world here, right? So we're operating at let's call this a 2 or 3 grand day at like a 5% profit margin. And then the next day was looking to be the same. And then creative number 20, which turned out to be, in this case, like a 15-second video that really showcased the product and the perceived value and what it actually is, gave the KPIs just a shot in the arm. And all of a sudden, our click-through rates, our cost per click, our conversion rate, everything went up by 50% or doubled. And so I think on this 6 grand day here, we just threw the creative number 20 into the scaling campaigns maybe halfway through the day, and probably did like a 4 ROAS on 6 grand. So it was like a 3 grand profit, where the day before, it might have taken a week to hit that same 3 grand before that. And we did that in half a day. And then you can see we very quickly ramped up all the way up to 30 grand in sales in a single day. And then things started to phase down. We started to burn out the market on it as we came into the deadline. But this 30 grand day, we only spent 11,000 in ads. So it was almost a 3 ROAS. So you're talking about a 2 ROAS here just a couple days before at 3 grand, all the way up to a 30 grand 3 ROAS, which is absolutely awesome. And it's a lot easier to do this when you're right before an event, like the week before an event, like Mother's Day, or in this case, Father's Day. You can ramp very quickly and maintain ROAS because there's just so much buying need out there that you're actually solving a problem for people because they have to buy a Father's Day gift, right? But and this sells evergreen, but not near the numbers that it does when it's periods of time where it's a problem-solving product. Okay, so this is a great example of how one piece of content can just absolutely change things overnight, and that's how I quit my job back in 2016. Was one picture took me from 2 grand a day, 3 grand a day at an okay profit margin to $25,000 days, up to millions in sales on a product I was running back then. And, I was able to quit my job very quickly, right? And do this full time. And that was just one creative, right? And ever since then, it's been one of my necessary go-to moves when you're looking to scale, is creative testing, and oftentimes it's user-generated content. Okay. Another common theme is getting your AOV up. Okay. So in this case, I've got a member of the group who is doing well with the product and in a particular niche. And what we did was rewrite that same product, put it on a different product, which rewrite that same messaging, put it to be appropriate for a different product that went after a different gender. Okay, so if they were willing to buy for this familiar relationship, then they'd be willing to take the upsell to something in another similar family relationship, right? Because we're in family gift giving here. And combination of that, the member of my mastermind here on his own did a quantity discount so that if people bought more than one of his winning product, they get a discount per product. And that's working extremely well. So, and here's the message from him. The second after, in the same hour of when I told him to do that post-purchase upsell, he's already getting sales, right? So his AOV is going up. So instead of just selling, one of these for 50, 60, 80, 90 bucks, whatever it was, he ends up with a $220 order. Now your AOV is so much higher. You can operate at a higher cost per purchase, and you can just, crush your competition, even if they're copying your exact product, because, they're going to get a sale for 80 bucks and you're getting sales for 220, right? So increasing AOV, pre-purchase, post-purchase upsells, you got to make sure you're not significantly reducing your conversion rate by adding the paradox of choice in front of people, by giving them more things to click on, which is one of the reasons that the post-purchase upsell works extremely well, is they've already given you the money for the other thing, right? But properly done pre-purchase upsell works extremely well. Sometimes it doesn't lower the conversion rate, and even if it does, if it lower the conversion rate slightly, if your AOV goes up tremendously, so what? It's worth it, right? All right. So that's a handful of the, with some examples, a handful of my go-to moves, and we have many more to increase profitability, to increase the time and amount of money that we'll get out of a winner. But these should be your go-tos, in my opinion, as far as factors to break through to scale. And it all comes down to you have to have. And I did these sort of in a somewhat of a proper order by talking about, getting the proper iteration of your product when we're talking message cards before you even try all this other stuff, because you have to have the foundation of a high profitability, best possible iteration within reason of your quote and of your design, and then you can, crank it to the next level with these handful of techniques and others.